I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Yeah, this is exciting. I told Richard I was really nervous. I was like, I hope I don't say anything stupid.
Don't worry. This is the magic edit button. So that's what we have the guy behind the camera for.
Thank God.
But yeah, I appreciate you coming on. I actually had Richard on. We were talking, I think, in March or February, something around there, right before I was kind of getting stuff more interactive with the community around here on the podcast before the Derby show. So I had him on, and then just more bodybuilders from around here. So getting to have you on too, it's really cool to kind of hear your side of the story.
Yeah, it's exciting. I was kind of jealous when Richard got to do it, and I was like, hopefully he'll ask me to talk one day.
Yeah, and so being kind of like in a world of, just like obviously being in the fitness world and the fitness community, you're within a niche, and so we're all living in this broader world. What is it like to kind of be in a relationship and be married to someone now and be a part of a business, fitness related business, and then just like a fitness and health related lifestyle as well? Like, how is that kind of, maybe not weird now, but kind of like comparing to other people, kind of a weird way of living in a.
Well, what's exciting about being with Richard, but me, I've been in fitness for about 10 years now, but I was always living in before Richard, I was living in a smaller city where, it's not very, you have active people, but not as active as Louisville. So when, I moved in with Richard and we got married, even before when we were engaged, it was nice getting to know just everyone else. Like, I've developed so many good friendships because I met Richard. I met Autumn Cleveland and, the Hornbacks, and you get to know all these people and you're like, wow, these people are so cool, and they're not as intimidating as they look like. As you see them on social media and it's like, wow, it'd be so cool to know these people. And it's like, I do know these people. So that's probably one of the coolest things, being with Richard is, gotten to know his friends, and his friends become my friends. And even helping the business, I've been with Richard at Body Solutions for over 2 years now, and just developing my own relationships with my clients. Some of my clients I've had since I've been there, and it's really cool that, I can do that here in Louisville, smaller city where I was, living at before. You don't really have that kind of opportunity. So that's one reason why I love being here.
And whenever, I've born and raised in Louisville, but really I started, I would consider, my fitness journey, if you want to call it that, in college more. So coming back into Louisville after college, I kind of was still kind of on my own. I've always been a little bit, I wouldn't say a loner, but what's that, the personality type, the not outgoing, but the other one, that introvert. I've always been kind of introverted. So I wasn't one to go up to meet people at the gym or interact much with people I didn't know. So getting to really kind of feel out the community in the podcast world, through the podcast world, it has kind of opened my eyes about how big kind of fitness really is in Louisville. And I never really saw that, even though I was kind of somewhat a part of it. And then, getting into the bodybuilding world, I didn't think at the time when I was kind of getting into it, like I said, from more of a podcast perspective than a competitor's perspective, but how much that really opened it to more like almost the whole fitness community, when not just the bodybuilders themselves, but also all the businesses related to that, and getting to work with some of those businesses has been really cool. All of the, the coaches and photographers and all the people involved. And it's just been such a really eye-opening experience of who is out there in this community as part of the fitness community.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I know one thing Richard and I have done, when we bought Home Fit last year, we had an open house, and we actually invited, other businesses in, one of them being like Zilla Mills, and they're out in Somerset. The owners are Jordan and Sarah, wonderful people. And, I've known them for years. We also brought in Optimize You, and, Jessica and Dylan came in, and, you just kind of support and help one another. And that's one thing I think is awesome about our community, that we have the opportunity to do that. And we do that. It's not just us, but you see other businesses supporting each other. And, it's a good feeling to have a community like that.
And for as much as I do feel that, that interconnectedness, that community vibe, it's also been a realization that there are some rivalries, competition, some I don't know. I'm not in, I feel like, deep enough to call it bad blood, whether it's that or not. I don't know. But what, how do you feel about that coming from, a business perspective?
Well, one thing I have learned just, being a human in the world, there's going to be that in every industry you get, whether it's fitness, restaurant, clothing. I mean, it's everywhere. It's not something you can escape. But the best way to handle it is obviously you want to stay professional. But, at the end of the day, as business owners, and Richard can attest to this, you do get burned, and you just learn your lessons going forward. You try not to badmouth people that, do you wrong. You just literally pick up your pieces and move forward. It's really all you can do, and just fix your mistakes going forward. At least we try to stay professional. It's the best thing you can do.
Trust me, my dad has owned a business for 43 years. And I've been working within that business for, you could say my whole life in a way,
Mm-hmm.
And so I've heard the stories of that kind of thing, and I know the rivalries within that industry. So it sometimes is hard, though, to keep a positive mindset about the industry when you're within that type of kind of disgruntledness or whatever you want to call it. Like you're just trying to run your business, and whether it's customers who are doing things that are, a little shady, or competitors doing things that are shady, it's so hard, I feel like, sometimes to just keep that positive mindset.
It can be, but I'm also a believer that if you believe in what you have to offer, then there's really no point to feed into a lot of that. Richard, for example, I love that he's sitting here, by the way. I've watched this man time and time again, revamp his studio over and over and over. We keep updating, we keep getting the best equipment in. So we don't need to worry about X, Y, and B down the street. We don't need to get involved in whatever they're doing or be like, oh, let's go check them out, see what they're doing. We believe in what we have to sell. We don't need to go out here and, look at everyone else's, how are they doing this? How are we doing that? Because we believe in us. We have equipment that you're not going to find anywhere else in Louisville. So we can proudly say that, and that's awesome for us. So
for sure, that is really cool. So being a co-owner now, is that correct? Of the gym, of the business, because at the end of the day, a business is a lot of responsibility. How has that impacted your, not necessarily your feelings toward fitness, but how has it kind of like shaped your perspective on fitness? Just being involved in a business at the level you are.
I will say it is constantly a learning experience. I'm still trying, I personally feel like I'm still getting my feet wet and learning a lot about it, because I've managed business, but managing and owning completely different. You have to treat that business as your baby. And that's one thing that him and I talked about, hey, when we get married, this is also going to be your baby. It has, you were speaking about being, introverted earlier. I kind of fall right in the middle. I'm not always extroverted, but I'm not always, always introverted. I'm kind of right in the middle. So I've had to make sure that, I'm doing what I need to do as a business owner to make everyone in the building feel welcome, say hi to everybody. That's a big thing for people. So, you kind of have to be aware of your flaws and make sure you're not always projecting those out as a business owner. Also, going back to protecting yourself, as a business owner, you want to trust everybody in your building, but at the same time, you can't always fully 100% trust everybody with your baby. So sometimes you have to learn how to keep relationships not so personal anymore. Sometimes you have to separate things, because as we've learned, it will get you burned. There's always constant things I'm learning, It's an ongoing thing, definitely ongoing.
Yeah, and something that obviously anyone in business is thinking about right now is, what is the economic climate going to be in the upcoming year and just into the future? As a gym, how does that impact the way that you guys do things? What kind of measures do you take? What is it? What are the thoughts kind of on your brain?
Well, I know recently we've talked about possibly revamping prices, possibly bringing coaching in as part of the training, just because, we are aware of the economy, where is it going? And, personal training is a luxury service. So when people are having hard times financially, what goes first? Luxury service items. That's personal training, that's hair, that's tanning, all that stuff. So we obviously don't want to lose our business. So, but we want to protect ourselves at the same time. So we, give some, take some, so that's why we were talking about possibly, revamping prices. And like I said before, we always feedback in the studio constantly. I think that's a big thing. We know customers get annoyed, and you can go into any gym, and if stuff's constantly broken or nothing's updated, it's like, okay, this is a problem. So that's one thing we'll never have a problem with. So we just constantly revamp the studio and just give our best to our current clients and also possible clients coming in.
Yeah, making that customer experience something to remember. And
oh, yeah.
Especially for a person who might be going into the gym weary of an experience, whether that's their first experience or they had a bad experience at another place, making that experience at your place different, making it better, making it, and constantly be thinking about it, how can we do that? What, is the music too loud? Is it too quiet? Is the room too dark? Is it too bright? Like all these things that go into the psychology of making someone feel comfortable. Because at the end of the day, I think that's what it really comes down to is, are you comfortable in that environment?
Oh, for sure. Just from my female clients alone, like one of our best selling points is that we're a private gym. So we don't have an open gym membership where just, random people are going to be in and out all day. And just hearing like stories from my female clients alone, like between being bullied, hit on, videotaped, like all this X, Y, and Z stuff. So, we're proud to say that we have, our gym is a safe place. You're not going to catch any of that happening in our place. And it's sad that that's still happening to females these days. You think that people would be over that kind of thing, but it still happens. I have girls that have gone in the, Planet Fitness and other gyms like that, and they're like, wow, I can't go back because I got bullied off a machine. And I'm like, oh my God, still like this is happening. So, we offer that safe space for our clients, and I'm glad that we can. Yeah.
So going kind of back in time, you mentioned you've been in kind of the world of fitness for about 10 years.
Oh, yeah. So I actually used to live in D.C. like a long time ago. And honestly, I think it was in like 2013, 2014. So going on 10 years. And this is how I ended up getting in the shape. I decided to buy a personal trainer for myself for my birthday. And I'm actually still friends with this guy to this day. His name's Grady Poole. And I hired him, and I actually ended up working with him for about 8 to 9 months. I met with him 3 times a week for an hour. And he honestly, completely changed my life. I changed my whole lifestyle. I started eating better. I used to live industry life because I was a bartender right on Capitol Hill. And, bartenders, what do they do after work? They go out and they drink more. They meet up with other bartenders and they go somewhere else and drink even more, And before you know it, you're spending $500 on alcohol and food in a night. That's no way to live, just very unhealthy. So I completely made a whole lifestyle change when I hired Grady. So yeah, I worked with him for about, 8 to 9 months. And then the following year is actually when I did my first show, which was actually back in 2015. So crazy that I've been competing for that long. But yeah, that's how I got into it.
So bartending is, it's a very interesting, I actually have a friend who he got out of the military and he went to like this counselor, and they're like trying to figure out what his next thing was in life. And so he said he took this test and it came back, and she called him up and was like, I think you should be a bartender. And the path that's led him down, it's so interesting because being a bartender, how is that though? How do those skills kind of transfer into just simply being a business owner and being able to communicate with people, kind of reading people and being able to because in the same way, a bartender is it's like a psychologist, you're trying to figure out that person.
Oh, yeah.
And so is a trainer.
Yeah, I was about to say that. I remember when I would talk to Grady about all my problems. And then I remember when I would bartend, my bar clients would talk to me about all their problems. And now it's funny, with my closer clients, I'm we're sitting here talking about stuff back and forth. I'm wow, this is an ongoing process, And it's so funny because, I have some moms I train. So it's nice to be able to sit and talk about mom things or, mom guilt or all this other thing. So it's a constant thing, and I think it's kind of great. So
yeah, you never really know what in life, what skills you're building in that moment, how they're going to kind of transfer to something else.
Yeah, exactly.
So what got you into wanting to do bodybuilding? Because that's definitely not and it's becoming more of it in this world of fitness, but especially back in 2015, it wasn't like a big thing. It wasn't like huge on Instagram yet. It wasn't like as popular, I guess. So how'd you get into it?
Yeah, just over like that time span, how much bodybuilding has changed. It's insane. But honestly, I ended up making friends with somebody at my bar one night, and he was randomly like, hey, you should do a show. And I'm like, why not? Found me a coach and I did a show. I feel like it was really crazy how it happened, just because like the team that I joined was Team Warrior, and I don't even know if they're still around, but it was located in, I think their gym was in Columbia, Maryland. So every Sunday they would do these posing clinics, and I remember he invited me just to go to one of the posing clinics to check it out. And I'm like, oh crap, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know anything about posing. I'm like, I have to wear a bikini, what, in a gym? Like all these things that are like normal now just didn't seem normal at all to me. So I remember going to this posing clinic, and like there was all these competitors around. Like some of them were, stage lean, some of them were off season. So it was just a really cool atmosphere. And like when I met all these amazing people, I'm like, wow, this is possibly something I could do. So I remember I joined the team, hired my first coach, and the first show I ever did was out in Woodbridge, Virginia, which was called the Max Muscle. But yeah, and that was in 2015, which, going on 10 years ago almost, which is crazy, wild. But that was my first show, and then ended up moving back to Kentucky, and then I did another show in 2017, both bikini divisions, and then the last time I competed was last year, which I bumped up into the wellness division, which is, we all know, is a newer division here in the States. So, yeah, that's how I got into bodybuilding.
And was actually like, I think whenever we start something, we have like these visions for what it's going to be. Some are good, some are bad. Like, you have those ideas and thoughts of what an experience is going to be. How did those differ from what the reality ended up being? When you're getting ready for your first show, and you're like, okay, this is, it's just different. Like, how was it different? Maybe.
I will tell you right now, and I've told Richard this all the time. My first show was completely terrible. Oh my God, it was terrible. I looked terrible. The whole thing was terrible. And I was like, wow, why did I do that? But I ended up learning a lot about myself through that show. And the only reason why I say it was terrible was because my look was not a healthy one at all. I got way too lean as a bikini girl, and I was down like 108 pounds as a 5'5" competitor. And I just, really hit rock bottom. Like my body wasn't responding to anything. Like it was pretty bad. So rebounding from that show was even worse, where, I didn't have the best direction. And, you don't realize how bad that rebound can be if you're not paying attention to what you're eating. So, after going from being 108, skin and bone, and then just trying to build back up, my body just gained weight so fast because I was eating everything, because I'd got to a point where my body wasn't reacting to food at all. Like, most competitors that want to win, they're not cheating on their diets. They're very strict. Me, my first show, I was so starved out. I remember eating a whole sheet cake like 2 weeks out and not gaining a pound. Like, it was pretty crazy. So why I decided to do it again, I don't know. But when I did do it again, I hired a coach that was more educated, I should say, very, much more educated. And I'll go ahead and add any new competitors. Make sure you do your homework on your coaches. Don't hire just these random pop-up coaches that are always popping up on Instagram. Too many people these days are like, oh, I did a show, I'm going to coach now. That is not okay, Yeah. And I can attest to that it's not okay because of my own personal experience. So just make sure, people, you're doing your, research. Ask all the questions you need when it comes to hiring a coach. So important. But yeah, when I did my second show, I hired somebody that was more educated, and my stage look was much better, much, much better that time around. And then last show I did, I hired Richard, he pretty much coached me. Best look I had to date, and we did it the healthy way. I wasn't starved out. He fed me plenty of carbs, and much better experience. My second and third time around, much better for me.
So going, after, I guess in that first show, like, beforehand during the prep, did you know that this is not right, or did you know, like, not like the information wasn't right, but did you know, like, this isn't how I'm supposed to feel? This isn't, because it is your first time, like, and then going into that second time, how did you kind of like, or maybe what did you feel, because that second experience was better? Did it make your eyes kind of open, like, oh wow, I might have known it was kind of bad, but now I realize how bad it really was, like during that second experience?
Yeah. So, as a new competitor, I mean, if you don't have competitor friends or a lot of people to talk to, you really don't know, unless, the only person I really was communicating with was my coach. And it honestly felt like, oh, this is prep. This is normal. It's okay. That's what it felt like in that moment, in those moments. Like, okay, I'm supposed to feel like this. I'm supposed to be starving. I'm supposed to be, feeling this way. But, when I started educating myself, even now, like looking back, I'm like, wow, that was not okay. None of that was okay. Even, the second time around, I wasn't starved out and I was being fed properly, just the smallest things. Like I remember that first show, having all fruit, including blueberries, like dropped out immediately, carb cycling 16 weeks out when I was already 120 pounds, 12% body fat. Like that's crazy to sit here and think about, I wouldn't, even me as a trainer, I'd be like, wow, that's terrible. I'm sure Richard would agree as a coach, like what, but the second time you did open up my eyes a little bit more, but hey, this experience was better because I wasn't starving all the time. Yes, you get hungry, but when your competitors are starving, like they're, that's a bad sign, Yeah. And then third time around, like best experience I had, my stage look was the best. I felt the best. Of course, we all know those last few weeks are the hardest. You do get depleted, but like I said, your competitors shouldn't be starved out. They shouldn't feel like they're on the verge of death, or at least not a bikini girl or a wellness girl. We're not getting down to 5% body fat. We don't do, we're not that low. We're looking 10 to 12, so, yeah, definitely big differences between the first show to the second show to the third show.
And, I had a thought and I just forgot it. I hate when that happens. Anyway, I'll remember it here in a second when I start talking. But what really was your goal with bodybuilding? Was it to do this show, I'm going to try it out and see what happens? Was it, this is something to help keep me on track with my goals? Or was it, I want to win? Like what was kind of the real true goal, or the reason for doing bodybuilding?
So what's crazy is back then the wellness division wasn't a thing. I remember being on Instagram and I would, scroll through these fitness accounts, trying to find the look that I wanted to achieve. And at that time, the look I wanted to achieve was actually the Erin Stern look, which if you don't know who Erin Stern is, she won Figure Olympia, I think back in 2012 or 13 in that area. But now she's actually competing on the circuit as a bikini pro. Like I said before, it's crazy to see how much the, bodybuilding has evolved over the past few years because, these new divisions come out and you see, people putting on more muscle, X, Y, and Z. So it's really about building a look that you want, So I remember being on Instagram, like looking, how did I want to look? So I originally, after I did bikini, I was like, man, I want to do the figure division because Erin Stern looks amazing, which she still looks amazing to this day. So I remember just, trying to build for that. But, the more you keep doing it and the more you start to shape your body, for me, my ideal look just kind of changed, especially when wellness came out. I was seeing athletes like Franciella and Issa, and I'm like, wow, these girls look amazing. I'm like, that's it for me. This is what I want to look like. So once I realized that, it gave me more of a sense of direction, and that's what I feel like some competitors can kind of lack. They don't really know what they want. And I mean, I've been there myself, but with the wellness division coming out, like I said, it helped me find a sense of direction. And like I said, my big goal, obviously, it would be awesome to turn into an IFBB pro, especially in wellness, because it is a newer division. I think there's only one wellness pro here in Kentucky, maybe. But to do that and to also own a business at the same time would, be great marketing. But yeah, that would be the ultimate goal, is turn IFBB pro, especially in wellness. Definitely something I want.
And, having a goal like that and looking up to people who are, highly achieved, does it ever sometimes like contaminate your mind a little bit? Like, you're, especially with social media, you're looking at people and it's like, oh wow, they look great. Mm-hmm. And, of course we all know it's not the truth and we know it's not reality, but you're thinking, oh man, I'm working hard. I'm meeting this. So does that ever kind of get to you, especially maybe during, the times when your brain's not all the way there, maybe during like a prep, like why am I not looking like this?
Honestly, it has in the past, but it doesn't anymore. Obviously, I think we all know there's this guy named Goob on social media who is literally throwing people under the bus for editing their photos. So with him doing that, and he's actually caught a lot of these wellness pros editing their photos. And once this, was started to be just out on the internet, it's like, wow, like they can't even live up to a certain standard, and it's like, it's crazy to me because some of these physiques are already like top 5 in the world. So to me, what I do for myself, if I find myself in that, headspace where I'm like, wow, this is really getting to me, I don't look like this yet, I just unfollow. I'm like, unfollow, get rid, block, whatever. I will do that for my own, mental health. And like I said, the people I do follow, they, like Franciella and Issa, they seem very real and genuine athletes to me. I've never met these women face to face, but their content is great. It's constantly like, exercises, movements they do. It's nothing too extreme like some of these other people. And that helps me because it's like, these are the standards. I like looking at the standards. Fran won Olympia for a reason. Issa was a close, I think she got 3rd for a reason. Seeing these women, it doesn't bother me at all. Like, I like having people to look up to. It's just, I think what hurts other people is when some of their idols are like, you see something weird when their pictures aren't adding up to what you see on stage.
Right.
And that's a huge issue. And I've actually talked to one of my good friends about that, about one of the wellness pros. I'm like, man, she looks so good in this picture. She looks good on stage, but something's not adding up. And she photoshops her crap all the time. Well, that's not cool. So just one of those things you kind of like, you figure out who's real and who's not. And it's kind of unfortunate that athletes are doing that when it's completely unnecessary, but it's just about, whatever you got to do that's best for your mental health. So
this episode is sponsored by Fountain TRT. Fountain wants to help you with your potential low T. Why do I say potential low T? Because a large percentage of men don't even know they're suffering from low T. They simply live with the symptoms that include weight gain, sluggishness, and erectile dysfunction, and have no idea of the cause. Fountain wants to help you figure out if low T is your issue and help you get your levels back to a healthy range with a topical cream. The Fountain team are medical professionals who have years of experience in the industry and expertise in TRT. These labs are often covered by insurance and you may not have to pay anything out of pocket. The topical treatment is easy to use, just apply it once daily to your shoulder area. Most men start seeing results immediately. So if you're ready to gain back your energy, drive, and mental clarity, lose that stubborn weight, and just generally feel happier, check out Fountain TRT and use the link below to support the weight room and claim your $1 evaluation. This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below or use code TWR20 online at mybapparel.com. Do you think that's, I guess, coming maybe from a place of like insecurity? Do you think it's coming from a place of more like, let's help out the sponsors that are, supporting me, looking better, whatever? Like, where do you think it's coming from for them to want to, like you said, they're already, the top 0.001% of people on earth when it comes to their physique. Like, what do you think is pushing that?
It's probably a little bit of everything you just said. It's probably a little bit of insecurity, want to be perfect in their craft, which I get. Sponsors, these people are constantly pushing supplements and energy drinks, and who knows? I mean, they could be photoshopping some of this crap behind their backs. Who knows? It's probably a little bit of everything. But actually, one of the wellness pros I know did speak on it, why she would Photoshop her stuff, and it's because she said she was a perfectionist. She didn't see something she liked. It was just an easy fix. And I was like, okay. So Definitely everything you just said.
Yeah. I think it's so hard because we know at the core that social media is what it is. It's not real. I mean, it can be real life, but it's really not real life. It's just out there. It's what people want to put out there. So I think you have to understand that. But then you also have to understand, especially if you're someone who has 1 million followers, whatever, 500,000 followers, that you're a role model, you know, and even something as simple as like, hey, a disclaimer, this picture is 98% real. Like, I just feel like it's something that would be beneficial for everyone, you know, keeping them from feeling like they have to hide. Because, you know, whenever you do something behind somebody's back, it's not easy on you to be like, oh, I have all these followers. They think I look like this. And if I show myself and I'm not looking like that, am I going to get exposed? Like, that can't be easy on them either.
Right.
So just being open about it.
Yeah. You know what's also crazy is I didn't realize like how important it is for people to have such and such followers. Like me, I could care less. Like I do not care. Like if you want to follow me, cool. If I have 10,000 followers, cool. If I have 1,000, cool. So I think that's another thing is people want so many followers, they'll do whatever they can to get that attention. So it's like, ooh, I'm going to take this picture and make my butt look big because it's going to draw on all these dudes. I'll get more followers that way, you know? So just, I don't know, social media is crazy because it's like all this validation that people just feel like they need on a daily basis. Like,
yeah,
it's wild. It's very wild.
It's because I feel like the world of social media, it's for some people, it's entertainment. For some people, it's like, oh, I might post every once in a while. I might get on there and scroll. You know, that's the spectrum. And for some people, it's like, hey, this is my business. So they're taking it super seriously. They're the ones that are, you know, maybe editing photos more because it's more about, you know, how can I keep the cash flow coming in? And then you have somebody else that's like, oh, I just do this for fun. And they don't realize that it's a business for this other person. Right. So it's just, I feel like it's, if we can look at it and understand why people are, you know, the true motive behind what they're doing, it might be a little bit easier to interpret what people are actually doing. You know, does this person post this because that's what they truly think or care about, or is that what they feel? Is that what they want to post? You know, because there's a lot of people out there on social media that do that, but there's also a fair amount of people who, you know, make money from social media and they don't get to post what they want to post. They, you know, they have people controlling their account for the most part, and then they have to get a certain amount of followers per month or whatever that may be.
I think that was a good point. I think a lot of people also probably post what they think other people want to see. You know, I think that's a big thing. I mean, just noticing on my own account, it's so funny. If I post some type of like photo shoot selfie, it's like 100 plus likes. But if I post like my son, which y'all are wrong for this, gets like 30 likes. He's cuter than me. So y'all need to go like his pictures too.
Yeah. And then part of that too is like, well, what's getting pushed out there by the algorithm, you know, by the app itself. Like what is important to post, because, you know, some people, they'll like that post and they might not even see the other post, you know? So it's very, you know, it's a slippery slope. There's definitely goods to it. There's bads to it. I think we have to just be realistic about what social media is.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's why I'm glad for accounts like Goob, keeping it real all the time.
Yeah. And speaking of, you know, social media, just within bodybuilding and how it's really made bodybuilding, and not the people, but the sport itself, it's made it more aesthetic, you know. I feel like, you know, just so many people getting into it and so many different creative people. I feel like it's made it more like flashy, made it more kind of appealing to the common person. So just how social media has really, I don't say social media has built bodybuilding up, but in a way it's really helped kind of build it up just by how much more attention it's getting, more people posting about it, things like that. It's been just getting into it over the last year or so. I mean, I've noticed, you know, more people talking and posting.
Yeah, for sure. Like just going back to what I said earlier, like when I first got into fitness, like scrolling through Instagram, I don't remember seeing bodybuilding anywhere. It was just like your general health fitness people. That's it. That's it. That was the main accounts, like what we would call influencers now is what it was. Yeah.
And now it's, whether it's influencers or, you know, becoming bodybuilders, or, you know, there's so many different brands out there, whether it's supplements or clothing, getting behind these bodybuilders, it's made it more where the average person sees a bodybuilder at the average brand. So it's like, that's maybe not as weird to see a bodybuilder anymore. Me personally, it was just a different, I feel like bodybuilding and fitness had a different relationship. It was almost like a counter relationship more. It was almost like, bodybuilding, it's such a small niche of fitness, and it may, and in some ways it really still is. It's not about all the time about the fit aspect of it. It is a sport. It's about getting to, certain physique and certain body fat levels and all that kind of stuff. So it still is that, but it just feels like it now it's more like meshed together. It's almost like one and the same.
Well, I also feel like social media has made bodybuilding look like such a flashy lifestyle, when in reality, bodybuilding is expensive. Like, it's such an expensive sport, and I don't think a lot of newer people understand that. Like, for a female, you're looking hair and makeup, $300. You're looking at your stage suit, $800 plus. Shoes, decent pair. If you look at it, $100. Entry fees, $100. NPC card, tan, hotel, paying for the food, paying for the coach, and it's like, it adds up pretty quick. I mean, that's an easy $6,000 right there. So I think it's funny when, you see a lot of these bodybuilders with like fancy cars, and it's like, oh, and I think this actually gets a lot of the younger people when they start to think, oh, I need to go coach people so I can do all this. Like, it's real easy just to hop into coaching all of a sudden and make, $10K and live this big fancy lifestyle, when you've got coaches that, actually know what they're doing, have been doing it all their lives, and that's not making that much, but are still, educated. So yeah, bodybuilding's definitely made it, on social media, like, look like such a flashy lifestyle. Like I said, it costs a lot. So there's that.
Yeah, that is definitely a big thing. And, with bodybuilding being what it is, and it's a long journey. If you're really looking at the realistic side of it, it's a long journey. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of dedication, a lot of sacrifice. So it makes me wonder with, I feel like almost this year is maybe somewhat of a changing of the guard in bodybuilding when it comes to like the highest level, or at least kind of like a peek into the future. It makes me wonder, like, what the next, like in 15 years, what bodybuilding will look like. Because I feel like the general population, when we're pulling obviously bodybuilders from this general population, and it just seems like there's a little bit less of those qualities, the willingness to sacrifice, a willingness to dedicate to something for a long term. So it just makes me wonder, and what do you think is kind of like in 10, 15 years, is because right now it definitely feels like it's going up, but like when the older generation gets out and the newer generation that is in, do they commit to the sport, or is it just kind of, I'm in for a year, I'm in for 2 years, and then I'm back out?
That's actually a really big thing to think about, just because, like I said, I've witnessed bodybuilding change so much in the past 10 years, and, I've seen people come and go, but, I think, with my age group, I'm in my 30s. I know a lot of people, even, around Richard's age, that are in it for the long run. So, our age group, we're going to turn into those, older generation people. So I'm hoping, in the next 10, 15 years that, it continues to evolve, but in a good way. I think with a lot of stuff coming out this year, that's going on in bodybuilding, there's a lot of like eye-opening things going on. Hopefully it will continue to improve. But yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. It's no telling where it can be in 10 years, but I'm hoping that it doesn't turn anything crazy. But just looking at like past bikini pros, like, your bikini pros that were turning pro back in like 2012, 2013, they were just like your normal average beach body. They weren't these big muscular girls that were lean and hard, as you see now. So I don't know. I guess we'll see 10, 15 years.
Yeah. And it's interesting to, I've actually talked to a few judges, and they asked them, like, why does a certain division change drastically, and even they're kind of like, it's just kind of it happens really. Like some people, like it almost is like if the general consensus of the pool of people are like, hey, we want to do this more, they can really control what that division becomes because that's what the judges are pulling from.
Right.
So it will be interesting to see like how it evolve, how like each, is wellness going to be like this? Is figure going to be like that? Is, men's physique going to be like this? And it just, you don't know because it's almost in a weird way in this sport, it's almost up to the athletes. Like if they really wanted to band together and be like, we're going to make this division this, you could almost do that as the athlete.
Yeah. It's, even watching like some of the judging from regional level shows to national level shows, just to see like the gap in judging difference can be so confusing now. Like, I hope this is okay, Richard, but I remember when Richard did his regional level show, he was told for men's physique, he was too big. And I was thinking, too big? A few days later, he gets on stage at North Americans, gets first call outs, and I'm looking at this. I'm like, all these dudes are big. What was that judge talking about? Too big. It's like, I don't understand it. So even that gap, for competitors can be really confusing. So I know that's been I know I haven't been the only one to voice that either. So I know it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years.
As a competitor, how do you deal with that? Is it just something where it's like, I watch what's going on with other people? Is it, I'm just going to maximize what my potential is, for my own body? Or, how do you go about trying to really, I guess, be successful in a sport where there are things that you should definitely, check the boxes of, but in some ways, like you're saying, it's a little bit kind of up in the air each show.
So what I do is I pay attention to who's, as on a pro level, who's winning. I won't pay attention to regional level shows. Like I'll pay attention on pro level, who's winning. And I just do as much of my homework as I can. Whenever I'm in prep, we get feedback from, Jimmy. That always helps. I know at my show last year, I was told that I need to make lower body gains. All right, heard. That's what I'm going to do. So whenever I do a show, whatever feedback you get, and this is crazy that some people don't get their feedback from judges, which I think is crazy. You have the opportunity to hear back from the person that critiqued you, so you might as well take advantage of that. So when I was told that I need to make lower body gains, which going into the show, I knew I was already kind of small, but I took that feedback and I applied it in my off season. And you just have to continue to do that. You get in front of judges, whatever they have to say, just try to improve the best way you can. You can't always pay attention to who's winning all these regional level shows and everything because it's like you never know who's going to show up or not going to show up. I mean, some of these shows are turning out 10 girls. Some of them are possibly turning out 3. So it's like out of that 3, and it didn't really have a lot to go up against. Like, it's unfortunate, but it kind of happens that way.
This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below or use code TWR20. Online at mybapparel.com. This episode is sponsored by Fountain TRT. A large percentage of men don't even know they're suffering from low T. Fountain wants to help you figure out if low T is your issue and help you get your levels back to a healthy range with a topical cream. The topical treatment is easy to use, just apply it once daily to your shoulder area. Most men start seeing results immediately. Check out Fountain TRT and use the link below to support the weight room and claim your $1 evaluation. This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
Why do you think some people don't take that advice? Is it because on show day there's just such a heightened sense of emotion, or is it, you're wrong? Like, just what is it about some people that you think?
You know what? I don't know. I do not know. I really don't. I don't know if it's because maybe they just forget to send their pictures in and ask, or if they just talk to their coach and their coach has something to say, or I don't know. Any show I've did, I've always gotten my feedback every single time.
Gotcha. And being, having multiple shows, doing multiple shows, what is kind of just in what you've seen, what is that kind of rate of return for the people you see at shows? Do you feel like is it's pretty, and I can't remember, I was actually talking to somebody who was a judge, and they were saying it was a certain number, but do you feel like you see a lot of new faces? Do you feel like it's kind of the same people? Like what is the population?
Well, it's almost hard to tell for me just because my span of competing time is like all across the board. So we're looking at 2015, 2017, 2021. But just recently I've noticed, I see a lot of the same faces doing the same show. But I did notice that, one of the girls that competed in bikini back in 2017, I did see her compete all of 2021 as well. So people are continuing to do it throughout the years. So that is kind of cool to see. Yeah. I know I have friends, they did multiple shows this year. I have friends doing multiple shows next year. So you will see a lot of the same faces for sure.
And what is the local bodybuilding kind of energy like? How do you feel like it's, going into 2023? What is, whether, with the shows, with the competitors, what does it feel like going into the next season or next year?
I think a lot of people are pretty excited mixed with anxious because, we, Jimmy and Monica are now announcing 2 new shows that are going to be in Kentucky next year. Obviously with Brett Jones pulling out of NPC, they had to replace these shows. So it's cool that they're already starting to hype up those shows. And I've already seen competitors talking about wanting to do these shows. I think it's called the NPC Cup for the spring, and then the Bluegrass Classic for October. So you got new shows coming in. So I think people are pretty excited about that, which is kind of cool. It's just something fresh, something different. So, yeah. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. And I think anytime you have something new, it's that opportunity to really create something that is new. If you're doing it the same way, it's like, what are you bringing to the table really? So.
Yeah, honestly, I know with competitors, and it's so funny to say this, it sounds like a goofy thing for competitors to kind of get annoyed about. But I think one thing I constantly hear from people is when, people constantly present the same kind of trophies year after year after year. I know competitors that will not go to certain shows because they're like, oh, I'm just going to get the same thing I got last year. And it's kind of like a minuscule thing. But at the same time, your competitors spend a lot of money. So it's always cool when promoters offer really good prize packs. Like the show Richard did, they got the wolf backpacks. They also got an entry to a national level show, NAs, and that's cool. That's something to strive for. Nobody wants the same trophy year after year after year. So it's always cool when these shows offer something like that for your competitors, because your competitors do spend a lot of money. So it's nice when they give something back like that.
Yeah, making it a little bit just kind of unique, something to look forward to.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, being a business owner, I'm sure you're, very aware of making something a fun experience every time somebody does it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you talked about having Richard as your coach for, your third show. Tell us a little bit about that experience and how that was obviously, I'm sure, very unique and very, I would say at times maybe stressful on the relationship, maybe just as far as you being in the mental state you were in and trying to remain. You have the bodybuilding side of that relationship and you have the non-bodybuilding side of that relationship.
So what's funny is that we try to stay away from doing the same shows, or that's what we've done in the past. But when, with him being at the time my fiance, my now husband, and also having him as a coach, you kind of have to separate the hats. It's almost okay, if I'm going to have a conversation with you, I'm speaking to you as a client right now. This is client-coach relationship. I am speaking to you as your fiance right now. It does get kind of hard, but as competitors, we understand how it can be. I know it's a little bit harder on him just because he has to get to a lower percent of body fat. And it's okay, if he's in the mood, it's okay, I know I need to stay away for today. But for the most part, I know through my prep, I think we did a really great job with communicating through everything. It seems like that last month can always be the most trying time just because, that's when you're the most depleted, you're tired, and it's okay, I'm a little moody today. It's can you help me out with washing dishes because I don't feel like doing it? It's about communicating. You just have to communicate. It's, that's key. And also comprehending at the same time.
Right. I just picture, you getting what you have to do for the day or the week or whatever. And it's just oh, I thought you loved me. You're never making me do this extra cardio. It's right. Like,
oh, whenever he gave me extra cardio, that was never an issue. He'd actually I know sometimes if I'm I remember this one time I was actually on pace losing weight, and I was in a good spot, and I remember he gave me 80 grams of oats and strawberries, and I was like, oh my God, I was so excited over oats and strawberries. It made me so happy. But he's an awesome coach. He's very intelligent. He listens, and normally whenever people ask me about coaching, I always kind of point them to Richard's, especially with general health. He's great with general health as well. He knows how to change bodies. I mean, he's literally evolved my physique in a place where I never thought I would get to. I started with him back in 2020, and I was coming off, losing my pregnancy weight, and at the time, I was working out, but I didn't really, I knew how to train, but not train like a wellness girl, and he literally gave me the best programming I've ever had. And, obviously I thank him so much for that, but he's so smart. I'm always going to brag about him.
And obviously, your coach, you're going to be very open with that person. You're going to be, have a very streamlined of communication with that person. But whenever you're obviously in a relationship with them, with your coach, and how does that add any additional, I don't want to say pressure, but does it kind of add any additional, they're they're not watching me as my coach right now, but they are watching me right now, do this whatever thing or anything like that.
I definitely know what you mean. It's a thing where it's I always want to make him proud, always. I just sometimes if I'm if I fall off plan, or if just something goes wrong or right, it's okay, is this going to make Richard proud? That's always a question in my head, always. And it's, as a client and also as a fiance and now wife, but that's always been my thing, is he knows, and he knows that. He knows I never want to let him down. So it's man, if something goes wrong, and it's crap, Richard's going to be mad, or I do have those moments where if I fall off plan or something, I dread telling him, but it's very rarely that I do. But yeah, I totally get that. That's always a thing in my head. Am I going to make Richard proud?
Yeah. And I think having somebody that you really are, because you're definitely obviously doing it for yourself as well, mm-hmm. but having that extra kind of kick, that mm-hmm. inspiration is so valuable, because bodybuilding, from what I've, heard from so many different people, it can be a lonely journey. Having somebody there that understands, one, and two, is helping you along the way. It just seems like that'd be so valuable.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do it without Richard and his support. I mean, me, sometimes I feel I have so much going on. It's it's just crazy, because I'm also a mother. I'm a mother, I'm a trainer, I'm now a co-owner, I'm this, I'm that. And it's whoa, it's a lot going on, So if I ever say sometimes, hey, Richard, I need a minute, he gets it. So like I said, communication's important. But yeah, like you said, obviously I do it for myself. But overall, I just want to not just make him proud, but, inspire any other mother that wants to do this and continues to compete, because that can be a lot as well, because at the end of the day, your child has to be taken care of no matter what. So it's also about, eventually making my son proud when he can one day look up and see me on stage. I'm like, oh my God, there's mommy, waiting for that day.
So how do you arrange all of those things? And I'm sure it's kind of an evolving continuum of, this is on top, I'm a mother, and then I'm a this, and then I'm a, bodybuilding's thrown in there, and then, owners on there. How do you manage mentally as well as obviously physically throughout the day? Just knowing, and then putting yourself in the mindset of knowing I have to be this at this moment, then I have to turn this on as number one, and then I have to be a mom at this time. So how do you handle all that psychologically and obviously doing the actions?
Well, I'll tell you what, it can be super stressful. And that's why I'm so grateful for Richard and obviously my son's father and his stepmother, because it really does take a village to do all of this. It takes a village. And I know that's such a cliche thing to say, but it's true. Last week, for example, my son was, I got a call from, it was 2 weeks ago, I got a call from his school, he's sick, you have to come pick him up. And I was like, okay, text him right away, like, hey, my son's sick, I have to cancel today. So in that moment, obviously being a mommy was number one, so it's just about your people, everyone around you understanding what's going on, because it is a lot, recently we've just made a move with our facilities. We had to clean out one building and get to another one, and that was crazy. And with, it was crazy because my son was sick during that time, and then Richard got sick during that time. So it's like, oh my God, it's even more crazy. And it's like, I have all these clients to take care of. And it's like, sometimes I feel like I fall short, because I feel like at some points I didn't help Richard enough. And then I feel bad canceling on my clients because my son is sick. So it's like a revolving door of just like, oh my God, I feel like I'm falling short. But at the end of the day, like, your people that actually know you, they understand. They understand. Like I said, it's about communicating, even with my clients. Like, that's an instant, like, hey, my son's not feeling well, we're going to have to reschedule. They're like, okay, cool, I get it. If Richard needs something, it's like, hey, I got to do something with Tristan, but I'll be there shortly. It's just about communicating and having your people close to you understand. Like, they just have to understand.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the human struggle a lot of times, is managing and juggling and trying to, just like putting yourself out there in the world and being like, okay, I'm going to do bodybuilding, because that's another thing, and I think we just have to be willing to, obviously not put too much on our plate, but at the same time, we have to be willing to challenge ourselves. We have to be willing to try new things, new experiences, learn new things. And, I think, being a business owner, being a bodybuilder, being a mother, all these different things, a wife, like any one of those things is a full-time job. So it's just, it's amazing that we as humans can manage and can kind of like live multiple realities at the same time.
Yeah, I will say with being a bodybuilder, it's much easier to manage during an off season than a prep, for sure. So we were originally thinking I was going to prep in the spring, but with as much as we got going on, I told Richard the other day, I was like, I think I want to push to August. I said, I'm in no hurry to jump back into prep. So I'm like, yes, I just extended my off season. I can relax a little bit, because I tell you what, with all this crazy stuff going on, it's just like, it can get very overwhelming. So I'm like, I'm just going to extend the off season, keep eating a lot, growing more, and just be more relaxed for a while.
Yeah, because, when you come into the time when you are in prep, I'm sure, hormonally, that stress, that does play a big factor. So you want to make sure that you're fully engaged in it. You're obviously you're going to be stressed no matter when, life is stressful. So it's not like you can get away from it, but you just maximize that short window whenever you are trying to do these crazy things with your body.
Oh yeah, for sure. Plus, I'm not even going to lie, and Richard can attest to this, I do not like getting up in the morning. So fasted cardio is so hard for me sometimes. I hate that. I'm not even going to lie about it. So if I could put that off a little bit longer, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, just, push it a little bit further. Yep. It always looks better when it's further away.
Yeah. Well, also, I feel like a lot of competitors also don't take advantage of, taking proper off seasons. Like, that's your time to change and fix your, issues. And I like that part. Obviously bodybuilding requires you to be transparent with yourself. And also I think it's a lot of, something else a lot of competitors can lack. And, I'm always honest with myself. I'm like, okay, I need to fix this. I need to fix this. Right now I've been, I think it was like back in May, I was going to compete, but I pulled out because I was starting to notice things I wasn't happy with my physique. I had a knee injury late last year, and also with being in the wellness division, I was realizing, is my upper body too big? And I told Richard, I said, I need to fix this stuff before I go back on stage. So anytime, I have the opportunity to fix my weaknesses, like, I'm about it. Like, when I go back on stage, like, I want to go back on like 110% correct. I don't want to be like, oh, she could possibly win. No, I want to be the one it's her. Like, she's going to be the overall winner. Like, that's what I want. So, I mean, everyone looks at an off season like it's just like, oh, it's just off season. We make, Richard and I make this joke about a lot of competitors being like 16-week warriors, where they're just like, oh yeah, I'm in prep, let's get it, I'm going to take the whole shebang. And then once the show's over, they don't do anything. They just take some time off and go back into a prep. Oh, it's prep time. I'm going to take the whole shebang, and they don't, and repeat the whole process. So the off season, it's a good time, and I don't know why people avoid it so much. So I'm excited about it.
And I was actually reading a post today, and somebody said it's, for them at least, everybody, you know, has different experiences, but for them, they consider it more of like an off stage season. You know, not an off bodybuilding season. So just an interesting kind of perspective.
Yeah, for sure. That's why we say, like, instead of saying off season, more of us, you know, a lot of people say improvement season. That's another good way to look at it, because this is your time to really change. You know, you have that opportunity to take in more calories, lift heavier. You know, you're not depleted anymore. You know, you have the chance to eat and lift heavy, grow the muscle you need to grow, or wherever it is you need to improve. You know, you have the chance to fix that. So got to do it.
Yeah, and I was actually talking to somebody who's going to be stepping on the Olympia stage for the first time this year, and he was like, whenever he qualified, he had started his original prep in December, you know, so going back to 2021, I guess, right? So 2021, and then he qualified, and it was in like June or July or something, midway through the year, and he was like, oh my gosh, I have like, you know, a whole nother, so I'm basically going to be in prep for a full year. But he was, in his head, he was thinking like, oh my gosh, I have to like create this perfect physique in these next, you know, 20 whatever weeks. And then it kind of clicked in, and he was like, you know, that's really not how it works. You know, during your prep, you're not really building as much as you are chiseling. You're not really improving as much as you are kind of defining. And I think as an outsider looking into the sport, I've never thought about it like that. You know, you are, of course, improving your physique. You know, you're getting down to what you're going to be on stage, but that's not the time you actually really improve. That's the time, you know, you're just kind of getting ready, more or less.
Right. Well, during a prep, you know, the goal is to save whatever muscle you have, and, you know, you get leaner. You know, that improvement season is your chance to eat past your maintenance, you know, get in that surplus and use those calories to start, you know, really exhausting your muscles during your workouts. You know, that's where, you know, you have the chance to really grow. And like I said, I've seen so many competitors like skip out on that time to really improve. That's why I wish more people did it, you know?
Yeah. So. It's funny because I've talked to people who are like, you know, especially kind of more towards the beginning of their bodybuilding careers, like, I was just like in that I'm not even like in bodybuilding yet. They were just thinking I have to continue to get bigger and better and whatever for so long. And then after they did a show, it's like, oh, I'm taking 2 years off or 3 years off or whatever to continue getting, you know, bigger and better or whatever. And then you have the people that kind of like you're saying, they're not taking they're doing show after show, or they're doing a show and then doing nothing in between, doing another show. So
yeah, it's crazy to see. I mean, just, you know, a lot of competitors will actually fire their coaches after show's over. And it's like, why do that? You know, you need a coach to help you improve. You know, that's the important part. Because if not, there's a good chance you're just going to come back looking the exact same next year. Yeah. So,
and what do you think kind of in that, I feel like is probably one of them, but what do you think kind of is that biggest difference between the people who, and it obviously comes down to genetics as well, but do continue to rise through the ranks and maybe do go pro versus the person that is just kind of, you know, continuing to do the shows, like, and maybe and not continuing to get better as well. Like, you know, like I said, maybe you're never going to be a pro, but you can still continue to get better. Like, what do you think is the biggest difference between that kind of, you know, those people?
Well, it's definitely a mentality thing. I mean, you have to want it. And part of wanting it is also having a proper coach there to help you get there. You know, there's competitors that constantly coach jump, you know, will hire somebody, and before you know it, they have 3 different coaches within a year. And it's like, that's not even giving those coaches enough time to even learn your body. Like, it takes a while, you know, and not all preps are the same. So, you know, having a good coach that's, you know, been on your side for a while and having the right mentality for it, because it is a process, you know. I mean, if you look at someone like Autumn Cleveland, for example, you know, she just got qualified for the Olympia and she's been at it for 20 years. You know, that's 20 years, and that's awesome. You know, she's one of those people that wants this crap, you know, she wants it. And you have to be that way. You can't just, give up and take 2 years off and maybe think about doing it again. You know, it's constant work. It's constant staying on your plan. It's constant, you know, improving and, you know, doing what your coach says, you know, having that person there to help you achieve that goal.
Yeah. Shout out to Autumn Cleveland. We're trying to get her on the podcast.
Oh, that would be awesome. I love Autumn. She's amazing.
Yeah. A lot of people, you know, that come on here, they talk about her and, you know, she's helped them with their posing or whatever. And it's just, you have those kind of cornerstones and it's interesting to see who that is going to become in the upcoming years and in the sport and just in the world of fitness kind of as a whole around here.
Oh yeah, like Autumn's one of those people that I've got to know very well through Richard, and she's actually my posing coach, and she also has done posing out of our facilities as well. So we have a working relationship with her. That's why I'm always going to support Autumn like 110%. That woman's a queen.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's been really good getting to talk to you tonight. I appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing, you know, about your journey and all the things that you do, you know, as a wife, as a mother, as an owner, as a bodybuilder, as just a human being, because that's something that we all can relate to.
Yeah, this has been fun. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you.